Hey everybody, Jess Conrad here, Laura, the beautiful Laura. So we're just kind of doing a little bit of a promo to let you all know about our women's retreat. This will be our first annual women's retreat that we will be hosting in Holden Beach, North Carolina. Um, it is just kind of like a spinoff from our Shattered Into One book club that we hopefully you've been following along along with. But we're going to start creating an annual vacation destination event where women from all walks of life are welcome to come together for fun, laughter, crying, healing, and most importantly, relaxation. So we're going to have some fun events planned for the evenings to build community and connection, but the rest of the day, you are more than welcome to kind of just enjoy the beach, the pool, or take a stroll around town. Laura, I don't know if you want to kind of give an idea and share with our listeners what Holden Beach is like, what you love about it there.
Sure. So my husband and I have been traveling there since 2009, and our family has a little beach house there, and that's our little location for this retreat.
He says little,
And
but it's like a 7 or 8 bedroom beach house. It's not little,
right,
it's huge.
it
It's
sleeps 12 people, so decent in size. But it's one street away from the water, so it's second row, and the little community is quiet and clean and family friendly. So there's a real opportunity to be reflective and to really get some rest and some quality time with friends and with each other. So that's what we're hoping for. We would really like to see who is part of our podcast and who's been listening.
Yes,
And
we'd like to meet you.
for sure. And we have some really fun things planned. So, things you can do on the island. So, there's a turtle watch sanctuary, and this is the prime time for all of these loggerhead turtle nests to be boiling, is what they say. And then every evening, the turtle watch patrol will come out and dig a little trench to the ocean, and all of the beachgoers like to come and watch that happen. There's lots of coffee shops, there's lots of places to rent kayaks, paddle boards, things that nature, bicycles, and the beach house will have some of that already.
I'll
And
be
then
bringing my own paddle boards, so if you have your own, you're more than welcome to bring those. If you're flying in and you can't bring it, which we know you can fly with paddle boards because we just did that when we went to Jamaica. But there will be things, yeah, that you can rent.
so, and there is a local airport. So Wilmington International is ILM is the code to find that airport, is about an hour from the beach house. It's not far. Also, Myrtle Beach is an hour the other direction, so you can fly in either way.
Don't worry about
And
it. We will come pick you up. Your
great,
transportation will be taken care of. It'll be a part of the cost,
which is
like of the week. So this is going to cost $500 a person. And that will cover like dinners, food, crafting, that kind of thing. The event, like the mindfulness activity that we're going to be planning and putting together and working on throughout the week as we get to know each other, and really develop our identities. Um, so keep that in mind. Holden Beach is really Laura's home away from home. So once you're there, she's going to have plenty of ideas and suggestions to offer you. We do plan on providing dinner in the home every day of the week, on the exception of 2 days that we will eat out. Day one upon arrival, and again, the last day before departure, we'll have something planned. Breakfast and lunch will be up to you to cook in the house. You can go out and about. It's really whatever you want to do, you're welcome to do. And of course, there will be plenty of coffee to share with everyone and tea, because now we're getting more into that tea side of things. But um, we're hoping that you guys can join us. We love to meet you. We would love to get to know some of our listeners. And if you can't make this trip, keep close by, keep tuned in. There'll be another one. This isn't going away anytime soon. So, anything you want to add, Laura?
other than if you really like relaxation, this is the place to be because there's a porch on every side of the house with rocking chairs, and they all face the ocean. So,
Time to spend with the Lord, time to
mhm.
fellowship with each other. This is going to be a very intimate setting. We will definitely have the presence of the Lord with us. So we look forward to hearing from you. If you are interested, go ahead and leave a DM. You can leave a comment below. You can give us a thumbs up. We'll reach out to anybody who leaves a comment. Otherwise, you can DM us and we will get you on the list and send you information. You'll also be able to click on the link that will send you directly to the Shattered Into One website, where you can click on the Women's Retreat tab at the top, and it will give you all the instructions and how you can sign up and let us know that you're interested. Hey, everybody, Jess Conrad here, Laura, the beautiful Laura. So we're just kind of doing a little bit of a promo to let you all know about our women's retreat. This will be our first annual women's retreat that we will be hosting in Holden Beach, North Carolina. It is just kind of like a spinoff from our Shattered Into One book club that hopefully you've been following along with. But we're going to start creating an annual vacation destination event where women from all walks of life are welcome to come together for fun, laughter, crying, healing, and most importantly, relaxation. So we're going to have some fun events planned for the evenings to build community and connection, but the rest of the day, you are more than welcome to kind of just enjoy the beach, the pool, or take a stroll around town. Laura, I don't know if you want to kind of give an idea and share with our listeners what Holden Beach is like, what you love about it there.
Sure. So my husband and I have been traveling there since 2009, and family has a little beach house there, and that's our little location for this retreat.
He says little,
And
but it's like a 7 or 8 bedroom beach house. It's not little,
right,
it's huge.
it
It's
sleeps 12 people, so decent in size. But it's one street away from the water, so it's second row, and the little community is quiet and clean and family friendly. So there's real opportunity to be reflective and to really get some rest and some quality time with friends and with each other. So that's what we're hoping for. We would really like to see who is part of our podcast and who's been listening.
Yes,
And
we'd like to meet you.
for sure. And we have some really fun things planned. So, things you can do on the island. So, there's a turtle watch sanctuary, and this is the prime time for all of these loggerhead turtle nests to be boiling, is what they say. And then every evening, the turtle watch patrol will come out and dig a little trench to the ocean, and all of the beachgoers like to come and watch that happen. There's lots of coffee shops, there's lots of places to rent kayaks, paddle boards, things that nature, bicycles, and some the beach house will have some of that already.
I'll
And
be
then
bringing my own paddle boards. So if you have your own, you're more than welcome to bring those. If you're flying in and you can't bring it, which we know you can fly with paddle boards because we just did that when we went to Jamaica. But there will be things, yeah, that you can rent.
so, and there is a local airport. So Wilmington International is about an hour from the beach house. It's not far. Also, Myrtle Beach is an hour the other direction, so you can fly in either way. ILM is the code to find that airport.
Don't worry about it. We will come pick you up. Your
Great.
transportation will be taken care of. It'll be a part of the cost like of the week. So this is going to cost $500 a person. And that will cover like dinners, food, crafting, that kind of thing. The event, like the mindfulness activity that we're going to be planning and putting together and working on throughout the week as we get to know each other, and really develop our identities. Keep that in mind. Holden Beach is really Laura's home away from home. So once you're there, she's going to have plenty of ideas and suggestions to offer you. We do plan on providing dinner in the home every day of the week, and the exception of 2 days that we will eat out. Day one upon arrival, and again, the last day before departure, we'll have something planned. Breakfast and lunch will be up to you to cook in the house. You can go out and about. It's really whatever you want to do, you're welcome to do. And of course, there will be plenty of coffee to share with everyone and tea, because now we're getting more into that tea side of things. But we're hoping that you guys can join us. We'd love to meet you. We would love to get to know some of our listeners. And if you can't make this trip, keep close by, keep tuned in. There'll be another one. This isn't going away anytime soon. So, anything you want to add, Laura?
Other than if you really like relaxation, this is the place to be because there's a porch on every side of the house with rocking chairs and they all face the ocean. So,
Time to spend with the Lord, time to
mhm.
fellowship with each other. This is going to be a very intimate setting. We will definitely have the presence of the Lord with us. So, We look forward to hearing from you. If you are interested, go ahead and leave a DM. You can leave a comment below. You can give us a thumbs up. We'll reach out to anybody who leaves a comment. Otherwise, you can DM us and we will get you on the list and send you information. You'll also be able to click on the link that will send you directly to the Shattered Into One website, where you can click on the Women's Retreat tab at the top, and it will give you all the instructions on how you can sign up and let us know that you're interested. So we look forward to hearing from you. Love you guys.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
We are together. Happy Easter.
Easter weekend, friend guys.
I think it's called something. What's today? Yesterday was
Good Friday.
Good Friday. Today is
Silent Saturday.
Silent Saturday. We are not going to be silent today.
Far from it. Lots of things to do.
Lots of things to do before tomorrow.
Mhm.
All right, here we are. Week 2, emotionally healthy spirituality. So week 1, recap, problem of emotionally unhealthy. So hopefully you guys took some time and diagnosed yourselves and just kind of really understand about yourself, like what's going on inside of you and the ways that maybe you are lying to yourself or presenting in your false self. We talked about those 10 key things that we do that keeps us unhealthy: the using God to run from God, ignoring anger, sadness, and fear, dying to the wrong things, denying the impact of the past on the present, dividing life into secular and sacred compartments, doing for God instead of being with God, spiritualizing away conflict, covering over brokenness, weakness, and failure, living without limits, and judging other people's spiritual journey, spiritualizing away conflict. I just experienced that a minute ago.
Very recent experience.
But we're not going to talk about that. So this week, we are going to talk about know yourself that you may know God, becoming your authentic self. So chapter 2 is basically the last 3 months of the books we've been reading: the authenticity, the braving the wilderness, the living fearless. Those books are all about authenticity and becoming your authentic self. That's kind of the theme this year, is building authenticity. So how do you know yourself that you may know God? And how do we really become our authentic selves? So what are your thoughts? When did you get to know yourself, I guess?
I would say later in life for sure.
Is that a question or a statement?
It's a statement. I would say later in life for sure.
Okay. Your face made it look like you were like, I think.
It's like a continuing thought, but yeah, because I really didn't, until I got under my own roof, I did not really figure out who I was. I felt like I had accepted a lot of the patterns and values and of the way that of the where I was living, and I actually had an adjustment issue. Like I remember going to the doctor about this and being like, why am I having such a hard time with my new job and my new, I just got married and we bought a house and we did all these things, and I'm like, why am I so overwhelmed? And him just being like, it's an adjustment disorder, and it's because everything in your life has changed so dramatically, you don't know what to do with yourself or who you are. I'm like, yeah, you called it. And I think that was probably we were 25 when we bought the house. I think I was. And then a lot of things happened in that time frame too, and I was not used to that prior to, because when you grow up in a home with your parents or your family, like everybody they were the ones who, when crisis would happen, they typically would deal with it. But now I'm an adult, right? So I have to do those things. I'm like, crap.
Your parents would deal with your adjustments, or what do you mean? Like persevere?
Yeah, or I would just let myself get so emotionally overwhelmed that I'd be like, Mom, I need help, or Dad, I need help, or something, and I would just like dump it on somebody.
Right, but that is what kids are supposed to do.
Oh, I wasn't a kid though.
Oh.
I was like, I was a college student.
Oh, you're
I
talking
just
about when you're 25.
like this is like, right before I commuted from my parents' house, and I didn't live on campus as an undergrad. So it was very hard to shift to that mentality of, yeah, I'm a college student, I'm an adult, but I'm living at home. So like that was a weird balance for me to find. And
This is after you got married?
this was right before, but then when I did get married, I found myself kind of doing the same thing. But funny enough, like, I mean, Phil's trying to figure himself out too. So we're both not used to that. And I think he did recognize that my emotional support needs were pretty high, and I recognized that I needed to do something about that. I think that was just a struggle for our first year, and that's, I mean, first year of marriage anyways is getting to know a lot of things, but I found myself
For
going
sure.
home a lot, yeah, and just feeling like out of place and not knowing how to handle all the new adult responsibilities, not seeing that coming. And then that was enough for me. And then like that was 2008 was when we got married, and then the economy crashed and I couldn't find a job and actually got laid off from the one I had. And those were all very new experiences too. So like in a lot of ways, I consider myself a late bloomer because I know a lot of people go through that when you leave for college at 18, like you have those 4 years to figure that out. I never did that. So it was me moving out, getting married, and then almost like experiencing that living on my own for the first time, but also with a new spouse. So it was a lot. But I would say, wait, coming back to the question one more time.
When did you find your authenticity? We're gonna start writing things down for you.
Yeah, thank you. I think it was that was the beginning of me trying to figure out what the heck am I doing with my life.
Well, it kind of sounds like that was the point when you realized you had no idea who you were.
Yeah, and I think that went on for a little while because then I realized I had a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
And then life was also changing at a rapid pace. Those first few years when you're launching yourself, 20s were really hard. And I mean, I could not have done it without my husband's help, but I also know that he was doing the same thing. We basically both lived at home until we got married, and then we got an apartment together. We were figuring it out together, but there were just times where it was just like it was overwhelming. And then we did get to a point where, year 6 or 7 was when we had our marriage crisis. And that was probably the point when, when I'm sitting there with my therapist and she's telling me all the things that I was taught, but now I don't have to believe them. Like that was like, oh, like, so I was still trying to implement all of those things from home as my values, but not really knowing what my values were. And I think that was probably the point where I started to just decide, no, I don't believe in this, or, I know I need to, that doesn't work for me. I'm going to live this way instead. So yeah, probably. And I remember turning 30, and that was, for most people, that's like a big birthday. For me, I was like, it was a very quiet birthday because I had just come out of this really dark season and we had just put our marriage back together. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just go into this, and my thought process from now on is just going to be thoughtfulness and be reflective, like be thankful for what I've learned from the experience. But
it's kind of like what you said yesterday when we were talking about, because Phil's been gone in Belize, and you're like, I'm starting to recognize everything that he does because like the house is falling apart without him being there. And I didn't realize how much he was keeping and putting all, doing a lot of the work around the house and things that you just kind of like, haha, is aloof to you, is like, that's not like, he's actually doing that work. And I know in a lot of relationships that becomes a really big problem because one spouse is always doing the constant cleaning and picking up and keeping everything neat and tidy and put together. And then you can grow resentful when your spouse is the one who just keeps making all the messes and doesn't have any idea or is completely unaware of It's kind of like those funny videos that you see when the guy's like, no, honey, I don't know why you're upset. Like, look, I can leave the coffee table a mess. And in the morning, the cleaning fairy comes and it's just clean again. And it's like, yeah,
She looked a lot like
no,
me.
that's, but people, I mean, and it's true. Like, a lack of self-awareness is detrimental to relationships, to interpersonal relationships. And self-awareness isn't just being aware of what's going on inside of you, it's also equally being aware of how what you're doing is impacting the people and the things around you. Um, we are both influenced by and influencers. So, again, going back to when you know what your values are and you start making decisions and living your life according to those values, that's when a lot of times when you meet somebody new or you're in a relationship, you can say, well, these are my values. This is what's important to me. And then you can see where your values differ, where they're similar. And if I have similar values from to somebody else, it's easy. We get along really well in those areas. But where our values differ, especially if they're like really deep principle, like rooted foundational values, um, that's usually what will break not just a relationship up. People will quit their jobs because their personal values don't align with the company values, or their boss has no values and they're just, egotistical and controlling. And, I'm the boss, so you have to do as I say. And they take away the autonomy of you coming in and bringing your values and your expertise and your specialties to the table and what you're good at. Um, and then on top of that, we get really worked up when somebody doesn't do something the way that we would do it. And so we want to tell them to do it the way we would do it instead of being like, well, let me see how you do it. Because my friend Todd, who wrote a book called There's More Than One Way to Cleveland. So it doesn't just have to be the same route. There's times when I would be driving in the car and I'm like, why are you going this way? It's quicker and faster if we just go with this route. And it's like, you know what? Just sit in the car and be a passenger. If you get lost, you get lost. That's their issue. Not you, but the other person who's driving. You're in the driver's seat right now.
It is my issue.
But it can be really hard to, and this is what's so important about stillness. Like, if you don't practice being quiet and still when you're in these situations, you're going to want to try to control it. And I know this better than anybody. I am taken so many marriage courses and personality assessments and all of that. And I literally live in control country. Like, that's what my results came back as. And I'm an 8 on the Enneagram, which is the challenger, who's somebody who likes to be in control. And it's really hard to explain to people that I don't want to control you. I don't care about what choices you're making, but I want to be in control. And in this dynamic and situation, I'm stepping outside of the place where I can control what's going on inside of me. So something has to change. And if you're not attuned to saying, okay, I recognize that what I'm doing is maybe negatively influencing you, or, provoking or creating problems for you emotionally, because I'm emotionally unhealthy, unaware, um, I'm gonna reject what your needs are in order to just fulfill my own. And that's what creates separation. That's what prevents the connection from happening. But if I recognize that and I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm going to maybe make an adjustment here within myself because you're equally here with me. It's not just about me and what I'm going through. Then you help people feel safe and secure, and that reestablishes safety and security. And the biggest problem with patients who come to therapy is, if you get down to it, other than identity issues, is you don't have a sense of safety and security. You don't feel safe and secure within your own body because you don't trust the decisions that you're making, because you don't know why you're making the decisions, because you don't know what you're feeling really, and you're just letting your feelings do whatever. So it's crucial for us as intellectual and emotional human beings to be able to connect head and heart. And this chapter talks kind of about just like, okay, first you have to know yourself. Then that you may know God. So know yourself so you know God. And God is the one who helps you know yourself because he created you. He knows what you need. He knows who you are. He gets all your quirks, all of your annoyances, all of those things. So it's building trust in that relationship with him first, for sure.
Quickly, are we recording?
Uh-huh.
Okay, just making sure.
You didn't hear that this when I
I
first
thought
clicked
that
it?
I did,
I
but
did
I
it this time. I
need
remembered to hit record from the very beginning,
look at that.
but it's like a trauma response for you. We're
Where was
13
I?
episodes in and you're still forgetting to record.
Wait, something's wrong. Yeah, no, that's
This is
valid.
why people have stage productions and people who work for them,
Mhm,
because
mhm.
my brain is not always thinking. "Dit, dit, 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 dit." So two things that I really just kind of two parts of this chapter I want to dive into. The first one is going over the three great temptations toward the false self, because I think that's really good to have a deeper conversation about.
Mhm.
So, skimming over the feelings in the beginning of a revolution on page 43, Daniel Goleman, the author of Emotional Intelligence, which, if you haven't read that, excellent book. It's actually, so there's emotional intelligence and social intelligence that Daniel Goleman wrote, and they're not easy reads. So, they're very like research based. So, it's
Mhm.
like educational. So, I read that book for a class in my master's program. Um, but there is a book that we are going to read at some point later in this year called A Practical Guide. What's the first part? I think it's just Emotional Intelligence, A Practical Guide. I'm looking over on my shelf to see if it's up there, but I think it's in storage. Um, by David Watson. And he wrote that book that's very easy and simple to understand and follow. It's very practical. It's his basic line for emotional intelligence is knowing what pushes your buttons and why. So figuring out what your triggers are, and that's a lot of times I work with people who come in for therapy and it's just like I'm doing all these things and I don't know why. So you know what your trigger, like sometimes you don't know what your triggers are. It's just like you're having this emotional reaction to something. So then we have to start really paying attention to what happened, who was there, what did they say, what was the environment like, and you're really starting to engage your five senses. So specializing with uh, people who have borderline personality disorder, it's very interesting, and I don't know if there's any scientific evidence research to back this up, but I do personality assessments with my clients.
Mhm.
We'll go through like this vitals method, and every client, almost every client that I've had who struggles with BPD is an INFJ or an ENFJ. I'm just like, and I'm an ENFJ who has transitioned over the past 15 years into an INFJ.
Wow.
Barely. I mean, I'm like 49, 51% extrovert, introvert. So that's
Okay.
not that big of a deal. But it's like you're either the protagonist or you're the advocate. And those are those two.
Mm-hmm.
And and we're very strong feelings people. So I've had to really hone in on the intuition side of me and really getting in tune with the five senses and being more objective.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what started to connect my head and my heart.
Yeah.
So um, I just found that very interesting
Yeah.
because every time I'm like, well, let's figure out what your personality is. And they're like, I'm an ENFJ. And I'm like, oh my gosh, us borderlines are all just ENFJs, aren't we? This is why we connect. Like
Yeah.
we get it.
Yeah.
And it's such a rare, they're like, it's less than a 2% personality trait like that people have. It's not very common to be an ENFJ.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, that makes sense because BPD is about 1 to 2% of the population. So that's us. We're
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
But
although I'm starting to wonder, like, I mean, just the more that I learn about it, the more if it's becoming more common. You know
oh
what I
yeah,
mean?
well, the root of BPD is abandonment, and how many families have kids who don't have a parent around? Like that
Right.
is abandonment issues. So
Yeah.
we are breeding children that are coming from not just parents that are separating and a dad that leaves or a mom that leaves, but parents that are working. Like children develop abandonment issues when they only see their one or two of their parents on the weekends because they're gone all week, or
Mhm.
if they work 60, 70, 80 hours a week. So the only time you ever see them is when they show up for 5 minutes at a time and they're not really present with you and you're not engaging and connecting and really loving,
Mhm.
with that parent.
Mhm.
I had another client whose uh, abandonment issues started when her brother passed away because he
Mhm.
was a lot older than her, and her parents were always fighting and always drunk and at the bars and doing all those things. And then when he died, she lost that safety and security.
Yeah.
And so when you lose a sense of safety and security in your childhood, you start to create these narratives, these stories in your head that become so real that you just become emotionally, and then you look for anything, drugs, alcohol, relationships, shopping, high risk addictions to fulfill that dopamine, the
Mhm.
oxytocin rush that you're craving, because that's what we do when we connect with people. We get
Yeah.
oxytocin.
Yep.
And when that's depleted in your childhood, you look for it in other ways. And once you start to gain it, that becomes what you're like attracted to now.
Mhm.
But it doesn't fulfill you. So then you start to hate yourself for wanting to do that. It's such an insidious way to grow up. Like the way that the enemy comes after your emotions and is like, well, they left you because they didn't care about you. And they left you because this and that,
Mhm.
nobody cares about you. Nobody loves you. Nobody. And that's what I hear all the time. Nobody cares. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so deep. Like we got to get underneath all of that. But it's definitely becoming more and more prevalent. And I think that's why 15 years ago, before I knew anything about borderline personality disorder, because I didn't learn anything about it, I didn't know I had it until I was in my master's program in my mid 30s. And when I started to study it, I was like, this explains so much from my early teen years
Mhm.
throughout my 20s. Like all of the decisions that I made were impulsive, emotional, looking to belong somewhere, trying to connect to people. And I connected in very meaningful ways, but like in a very dark place. So,
Yeah.
um, and then instead of working through that with a therapist or a psychologist, I worked through that with God. And so I feel like he blessed me with this understanding
Mhm.
of it's not about just doing what psychology says. It's everything that psychology teaches is biblical. It is in scripture.
Mhm.
They just take God out of it and say, well, no, it's just this part of your brain. Yeah, well, if it was written 3,000 years ago and we didn't start studying this until, I don't know, BPD like 30 years ago, maybe a couple hundred years ago, when psychology first started to become a thing, how can you tell me that it's psychology, not scripture? And
Mhm.
I learned and overcame all of my mental illnesses without ever stepping into a therapy room. So, do you need therapy? Would I have benefited from it? Probably, absolutely, because that's where I started to hear like people telling me like, "What about this?" and "Let's look into this." But I'm a borderline, go big or go home. Like I'm either all in or I'm not doing it at all. So, when it came to learning about my mental health, I was like, well, I'm not going to go talk to somebody about it. I'm going to become the expert in this. I'm
Mhm.
going to understand myself so deeply and intimately that nobody can tell me who I am or am not anymore. Because I spent my whole life trying to be that chameleon and changing my colors to fit in and trying to blend and be like everybody else, where it's like, you have to know you. You have to go through that obnoxious stage where you're emotionally enslaved into that emotional liberation to say, this is who I was and I didn't understand anything. Now I'm swinging to the other side of the spectrum. I'm on the other side of the pendulum. That doesn't work either, but
Mhm.
it gives you an idea of it breaks what this side is. It breaks the addiction, the the belief, it shatters that belief system.
Yeah.
And then you swing to the other side and you start to see things over here, but then you also realize after time, I did at least, that I don't really quite like it all the way over there either.
Mhm.
So how do we do both of these together?
Yeah.
And that's what got rid of the anxiety, the ADHD stuff, the all the problems of whatever that I was going through emotionally. And it took me many, many years to work through BPD. So people who have that, it's like you have to accept that this is a part of you.
Mhm.
You have very strong emotions for a reason, and there's nothing wrong with you for having those strong emotions. But if they are making your decisions for you, and it's based upon the false narrative that you've been telling yourself, um, we have to change that. We have to correct that.
Mhm. Mhm.
And Jesus knows. God knows exactly what you need to hear, when you need to hear it, how you need to hear it. He will bring people into your life who will speak these truths into you,
Yeah.
not once, not twice, at least 3 times. Um, And research says that you have to learn and hear something a minimum of 3 times from 3 different sources before it'll actually spark like this part of your brain that's like, pay attention to this. This is a big deal.
Mhm.
So if you've been telling somebody the same thing for 20 years and they've heard it from somebody else and then a third time and then they come back to you and they're like, oh my gosh, this, and you're like, I've been saying this for it's not about you. Like,
Mhm.
our brains need to hear this information from multiple sources before it's like, oh, that makes sense. I need to hold on to that. Which is, excuse me, why I think we have to read so many freaking books when we're in school and when you're specializing and getting your doctorate, you read the same thing
You
over and over and over
Yeah.
from multiple sources. And then you're like, okay, so this is valid.
Mhm.
It becomes more valid. So, all right. So David Goleman, the author of Emotional Intelligence, defined emotion as referring to a feeling and its distinctive thoughts, psychological and biological states, and range of propensities to act. What does that mean? So what he meant is that God created human beings to feel a wide range of emotions. And then we're going to talk about the 8 main families. So if you don't have one of these, dun, da, 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 I have one hanging on the wall right there. Everybody on the planet Earth needs one of these. This is a feelings wheel. I'm going to explain this to you real quick, what a feelings wheel is. Feelings, I feel, so in the center. So typically there's not this little white thing, but whatever. So the center of this feelings wheel are our primary. So universally, these are like the universal primary emotions. I think Brene Brown talks about it in the book Atlas of the Heart, that nobody agrees on this. Every researcher has a different idea of these different emotions. But there was a book I read called How Emotions Are Made, by a woman who traveled the globe and went to all the different, like, I mean, like villages that are no language. People don't even know that these villages exist, type of thing.
Mhm.
And she said, basically, what I learned was your emotions, the difference between your emotions and your feelings. So Brene Brown says your emotions come in through your 5 senses. Your feelings are then cognitive. So if I'm emotionally feeling something sensationally in my body, my brain then tries to label that and name it something. So this other lady on her quest, her journey, she said, emotions are basically the reason why there's like the 7 or 8 basic emotions is because you can look at somebody and you can see on their face what they're feeling. So if somebody's smiling, you can recognize that's happiness. I don't have to speak the same language as you. I see this and I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, they're smiling, they're happy.
Mhm.
If somebody's crying or their face is down and they're sulking and everything's kind of like, you can see sadness, you can see anger, you can see disgust, you can look at somebody's face and recognize these different emotions. And if you can't, I'm looking at our little stress balls over there that have the faces on them that we got for the kids and police, um, and for the teachers. So we're going to teach everybody how to do this.
Yes, we are.
Okay, how am I feeling? I don't know. Look at yourself in the mirror.
Mhm.
Go see what your face looks like when you're feeling happy. Become
Mhm.
familiar with that. Look
Mhm.
at yourself. I mean, everybody has a cell phone, everybody's doing selfies. Utilize that as a way to bring self-awareness.
Mhm.
One of my favorite things is when I hear people say, they're like, how are you feeling, nerd? I'm fine. And it's like, does your face know that? Because your face is telling me a whole different story. I had a client yesterday. We were talking and I was like getting real, sharing a story with her. And she just started laughing. And I was like, what is so funny? And she said, your facial expressions just crack me up. She's like, you get so theatrical, like your face just changes. She's like, I just love it. And I'm like, well, you have to be, thank you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was important for me to understand what I was feeling,
Mhm.
and what that looked like, because I didn't want to have an RBF.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so one of the things that I became very aware of, and I'm very attuned to it, I think we talk about this. Where were we at? We were walking around. Oh, we're on vacation. No, at the airport.
Mhm.
We're at the airport and I'm just looking around and I'm like, everybody looks so miserable. Like we're going on vacation. Nobody's smiling. Everybody's just in their phones, just like eyebrows buried and, like, I'm just like, why does everybody look so miserable?
Yeah.
Like we're getting on
Where's
I
the
think it was
joy?
on the airplane.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it
We were
was.
sitting there waiting for the bathroom and I looked around and I was like, why does everybody look so miserable? We're going to Jamaica. Like, come on,
Get
smile. Like,
excited.
what is the problem here?
Yeah.
But I think a lot of times we're just so used to walking and being in life that we're unaware of what the sensations are and what's going on around us.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've been practicing for many, many, many years is, so to get past social anxiety or the fear of like what people might think of me, I became really attuned to anybody that I'm passing anywhere. If they're walking towards me, I will make eye contact with them if I can. If they never look up, they never look up. I was like, but anytime they make eye contact, if somebody does look at me, I smile.
Hmm.
I purposefully do this intentionally and purposefully because a lot of times people will come to me and they're like, oh, you just never say hi or anything. And I'm like, actually,
My smile's my
I
greeting.
purposefully make sure that I make eye contact and smile with people. So if you think that about me, that's your projection, it's what you're doing. So maybe you're not aware of this, but you're not the one who's looking up. You're not the one making eye contact. You're not
Hmm.
the one who's talking or trying to strike up. I know I do that.
Hmm.
So that's one way to really help yourself move past the discomfort. I mean, now I'll strike up a conversation with anybody. I get nosy and I'm like, "Ooh, what are you reading over there? That looks interesting." And it lightens the mood. You make
Yeah.
friends, you connect with people. You see that the world's not as dark and as scary and
Yeah.
that you experienced when you were a kid or whatever that you were going through. Like you have to open yourself up to seeing that there is beauty and kindness and love in the world. So,
I think by doing that too, I have met so many interesting people by taking that chance. I've connected with people
oh yeah.
when I know it's so much easier as a college professor when I walk into my classroom right before I'm setting up. What do you think I see? No one's talking to
Kids on
each
their cell
other.
phones,
Yeah, 100%. They're on their computer, they're on their cell
killing
phone.
their brains because that's what the cell phone does. It
I'm telling you.
literally kills your brain cells.
But
So,
if I were to go back in time a decade, I mean, it does make me sad. I have to work harder to get them to talk to each other now because I would come in and they would actually be talking to each other.
yeah, because they don't have their phones.
Right. And or at least it wasn't they had them, but it wasn't as bad as it is now. Like
Yeah.
there's an addiction, but it keeps getting worse because there's more platforms and there's so many videos and swipe, swipe, swipe.
I got
And
to stay connected with everybody all the time.
yeah, and I mean it's to the point where even if we are busy in class and they get a couple extra minutes because they finish up what we're doing before we go to the next thing, out comes the phone.
Yeah.
So I've had to just start marking people down, just saying like you can survive 3 minutes, you can
Yeah.
survive five. If you get done early, talk to each other, move on to the next part of this. um but that's the biggest challenge I have as a professor because they really don't want to connect with each other. They just
I don't know if they don't want to, they don't know how to because they've been born into this world where your phone, you've been false belief, you've been
Mhm,
taught to believe that the only way to stay connected is through social media
true.
or on your phone. So I'm here doing this, missing everything that's going on around me,
Yeah.
which technology, if we were just talking about that movie Idiocracy. I watched that movie back in, I want to say 2008, something
Oh,
like
okay, it's
that.
been out a while then.
Yeah, it came out a long time ago. And I remember the first time I watched that movie, I was like, holy crap, this is the future. Like this is literally already happening.
Yeah.
And now they have it all over the internet and they're like, they predicted this, this is going on. But technology, as great and advanced as it is, the only people who are as great and advanced as technology are the people who are writing the algorithms. So like
Yeah,
let's
that's
all
their
be
job, right?
straight about this. Um, but I used to be really good with navigating. I could drive somewhere like once or twice. By
Mhm.
the third time, I would know exactly how to get there. Because you pay attention to landmarks, you remember turns, you count streets. You're using your brain to create the map inside of your own head. And now when GPS came out, I was like, this is going to make me dumb. I'm not going to know anywhere or how to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's true. We were just joking about when you came over, and I was like, girl, like you have driven here how many times and you still don't know how to get 5 minutes down the street to the church? Like it's two
We
turns.
ended up
Literally, you turn left out of my driveway, left on the street, and it's on the right hand side.
we ended up in an abandoned parking lot last night. She's like,
I'm
I
like,
don't
turn
think I've ever
around,
been here.
turn around. So you really have to be intentional if you want your brain to. I mean, this is why I think dementia and Alzheimer's and
Yeah.
all of these serious cognitive problems are growing and developing and getting stronger and more prevalent is because technology is preventing us from actually using and operating those parts of our brains and exercising that part of our brain. One of the things that we do with our geriatric community, who start to notice like I'm not remembering things as much, and this is, going for me. We literally have them do like Sudoku puzzles and real puzzles and crosswords. And it's like you're
Mhm.
going back to just doing the basics. So if you're reading consistently, reading is one of the most, like, people are like, I just like to listen to books. That's fine. You're going to hear the information, but reading actually trains and exercises your brain. So pick up a book, read it,
Mhm.
give that part of your brain the exercise it's needing. It's like you sit around, and if I don't use my muscles and my body, they're going to become weak.
Mhm.
They hurt a lot more. You get injured a lot more often. You're not as strong. Like,
Right.
you have to go exercise. You have to do the work. And reading is the work that you have to do. When I talk about journaling, oh, I want to type it. That's fine. You can type the journaling, but there's something different that happens in your brain when you take a pen and you put it to paper and you write the words out. It calms and slows your nervous system down. It gives you perspective. It
Mhm.
helps you see things differently. It really just connects you and grounds you in the present moment. So, they seem old school compared to this digital world that we're moving into, but we are not digital beings. We are
Right.
human beings, and we
Mhm.
need to be doing the things that exercise our bodies, our minds, and connect us to each other. Otherwise, we're just literally going to be the Terminator movie in the future.
Look, I think about that all the time. Like
The
Skynet's
robot,
coming.
Skynet's coming, and we're all going to be like on our phones, like, oh, okay, the robots are good. They're going to kill us because, that's just that's
Because
us.
that's what they do. They're
And that movie
programmed to do it.
Surrogacy, that one really got me when I
Oh,
watched
I
that.
remember seeing that. Yeah.
I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna have robots that we can just put a thing on our head. The robot goes out. That's us, but in our perfect form, that whatever we think, it's just so sad.
Yep.
Anyways, that's me on my tangent. Um,
Important.
all right. So back to the feelings wheel. We digress. Not really, but
It's all
so
connected.
you have the main 8 emotions in the center. This one has a couple of more. Anticipation is not one that I'm used to. I have like the 6: fear, anger, disgust, surprise, happy, sad. This one has trust and anticipation added to it, which I like actually, because trust is a big problem and it's something that we do. It's not a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it is a feeling, it's not an emotion. I don't
It's
know.
an
I don't
action.
think trust is an emotion, so I would disagree with a little bit of this. I get why it's in here though. So anyways,
Right.
you have these primary emotions here in the center. It's real easy to understand what your primary emotions are. Brene Brown also said that this could be secondary because something else is going on. I think when I perceive primary emotion, primary I see as it's the first thing that you become aware of. I know I'm angry, I know I'm sad, I know I'm happy, I know I'm disgusted. And I say that because in her research she said the top 3 emotions that everybody is mad, angry, happy. Or she said pissed off, happy, and sad or
Pretty much.
fear.
Mm-hmm.
I would say
Mm-hmm.
fear is another big one. So you know that you're feeling that. So then you have these secondary and tertiary feelings, secondary and tertiary. So you can have multiple feelings attached to an emotion. So just keep that in mind. It doesn't have to just be this or that. Like if I'm feeling happy, I can't feel sad. Like, yeah, you can. You can feel
Mm-hmm.
multiple emotion, or you can have multiple feelings attached
Mm-hmm.
to different emotions. That's what bittersweet is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that sucks, but it's also good because of this reason.
Right.
So if you don't understand your feelings, and this is how I explain it to my clients, you can know your emotions and you can get by. Like, if you know your emotion, it can help to just say, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel happy, I feel whatever. Um, but when you're problem solving, when you're really trying to get to the root of something and understanding what's driving behaviors or belief systems that you have, if I know that I'm feeling, let's say, fearful, I know I'm scared, So, secondary emotions or feelings to the emotion of fear: cautious, weak, scared, anxious, nervous, worried. Timid, apprehensive, insecure, vulnerable, frightened, terrified, dread, panicking, threatened, uneasy, edgy, distressed.
Mhm.
When I look at those feelings and I can hone in on what's really driving this emotion in me, it's going to change my outcome. It's going to change the action that I take. If I'm scared, like if I'm feeling frightened, what I will do to deal with that emotion, not suppress it, to resolve it,
Mhm.
is going to be really different than if I'm just feeling edgy. If I recognize I'm feeling edgy, I'm going to act and behave or do something different. But if I'm just always doing the same thing for all of these different feelings because they're rooted in fear, I think the easiest way to kind of explain that is that fight or flight response.
Mhm.
You're either going to freeze or you're
Mhm.
going to fight. You're going to fawn. Some people fawn. That's that people pleasing. Just keep the peace. Don't say anything. Stop speaking up. Like, I can't believe you just said that. Like, they're going to be upset about that. Like, you don't want to, who cares?
Right.
Like, be
Right.
authentic. If something is upsetting you, I'm not allowed to say anything about it because it might upset somebody else. So you're okay with me being upset quietly inside of myself, but to speak it out loud and to make other people aware of that discomfort is discomforting. To me, that's hypocrisy. That's an
Yeah.
oxymoron. That's a paradox,
Well,
like oxymoron type thing.
and I think people often forget that Jesus did that all the time. He called people out, and like
Yeah.
if he can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
And honestly, I know there are so many times where it's just like the spirit's speaking to your heart and it's really loud. It's in your head like no
Yep.
no no no, you can't just let that slide. And to not do that is disobedient.
Yep.
And God, if God puts it on your heart, he's going to give you the courage to speak it. He's going to tell you what to say and what not to say. Um but that's why it's so important to know what you're feeling and to know what the emotion is.
Yeah.
Um and I think that can be done with self-control. You were talking about the pendulum, how you go from one side to the other. I remember being that I'm was a big, still recovering people pleaser,
Still recovering.
still recovering people pleaser, but also with fight or flight or freeze. I was a freeze person.
Hmm.
And I still have to struggle with that because I can catch myself going into it and then I'm like, no, 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 you're safe. Like just say the thing.
You can feel this.
Yes.
Take a deep breath
And
first.
you can say something about it, which was my biggest struggle. And then when I got out of the situation where I felt like I had no voice, and then all of a sudden I'm like, all those people are gone, that situation's gone. I'm like, I have got all the voice. Now I'm saying way too many things. I have no censorship at all. So I
I
remember
go for saying nothing to everything, and
right, and
some of those
everyone's
things don't
like,
even make sense. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, other extreme. So, but I remember my mom. I remember I popped off saying something, and I was like, I'm sorry. That was like the moment of awareness, and she was like, it's okay. And she's like, I think it makes sense for when you're trying to find your balance that you go from one extreme all the way to the other, and it takes time to scale it back and figure out where that is.
Yeah.
And I remember her saying that to me, and that was not the response I expected. I expected her to be defensive or upset or whatever, which I mean, in the
Or correct
situation,
you and say you shouldn't
right,
feel that way, and this
right.
is why.
But and also I had people pleaser was like, oh no, I hurt her feelings, which yeah, if you've hurt someone's feelings, you do need to take accountability for that. But her response was just so like, it's okay, I can understand what you're trying to
Well,
do.
the people pleaser would have never hurt her feelings.
True story. Yeah. Yeah.
So the
Um,
obnoxious stage of
mhm.
emotional liberation between enslavement to liberation, according to Dr. Rosenberg, is what you're doing, what you're explaining.
Yeah.
Like, "Ugh, normally I wouldn't say anything at all, and I'm going to say something this time," and then you're like, "Bleh."
Yeah, it was
You're like,
way overpowered.
well,
Like it's like hitting the
that's not
gas.
how it sounded in my head when I was going to say that, but that is definitely not okay about how it came out, and I apologize for that.
But that's how
And
you learn too.
yeah,
Like, and that's why it's so necessary. And I think also that human connection, that's one of the reasons why it's so important to talk to each other, is because at the end of the day, you recognize that we've both felt that at some point where we've overcompensated, undercompensated, and then we're like, oh, and
yeah.
that's how you learn to find that balance, but it takes practice.
And you said the key word. It takes practice.
Mhm.
You have to practice doing this. And if
Mhm.
you're not at a place where you're ready to practice out loud, write it in your journal.
Yep.
practice what you would say this way. I remember when I was a kid, um, and somebody would say, and I would shut down. I wouldn't say anything. Why? Because as in my household growing up, like you would get your ass beat.
Right.
Part of my language.
Mm.
And so like when kids would say things and I would just freeze, like, peers, I would say, not when we were kids, all of us collectively, I would freeze and be like, but in my head, I'm like, these are all the things I would say. Next time if somebody says that to me, I would say this, and I would say this, and I'd say this, and and I would just be going off.
Yeah.
I'd be looking in the mirror, getting ready, like, blah, 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 blah,
Yep. Talking them down.
And, I've heard and read in certain Christian books where they say how, those are ruminating thoughts, which is true. However, if you can figure out how to utilize that to your benefit, I don't think it's a bad thing. All of that taught me, well, back then it taught me how to be real snarky and sarcastic and witty. But that practice has also taught me how to be quick to looking at it from the opposite perspective too. So I'm talking and I'm saying these things out loud. And once I found like that internal healing, old habits still come, right? So I'm still like venting and in my head about it. But now I also have the Holy Spirit going, okay, well, what if you looked at it from this perspective? Well, maybe look at it this way. How about you look at it this way? So all of that venting and ruminating thoughts and all of that stuff throughout my emotionally enslaved time, and then becoming the obnoxious side of it, really trained me how to now do what I do for a living, to be like, well, I totally feel that. Like, yeah, I would be super pissed off if I looked at it from that perspective too, like that. That's awful. However, what if they looked at it? What if it was from this? What if this is what they're going through and that came across that way and it really had nothing to do with you? And then it's like, oh, and that's our narcissism, like this narcissism thing in the world. Like if you're calling people a narcissist,
you might be one.
You might be one. Not one. I don't want to say that. Narcissism is a narcissist is a collection of attributes that are written in the DSM for a reason. Narcissism, though, is just your pride. Like that's all it comes down to is pride. And everybody has pride. We all, this is like the hardest thing in the world to overcome. It's me, me, me. What about me? I'm hurt. I'm this. Me, me, me. And there's nothing wrong with saying, okay, that hurt me. Where were you coming from? What were your intentions in saying that? Are you okay? Like, you don't usually talk to me like that. And you just kind of snapped. Are you feeling okay? That's not like you. This isn't your character. This is different. So when somebody is reacting to you in an ugly way, I remember watching this video and it boiled my blood, because it was a Black man holding the camera, his phone, who's a Christian, identifying as a Christian, and there's this white woman who's being a Karen, we'll say. Me being a professional trained person to recognize this, she's obviously either had some sort of severe mental illness going on, a bipolar disorder. It could have been schizophrenia, could have been borderline personality disorder, but she was operating from a place of significant fear. And in her fear, she's attacking, right? Like she's just like, get away from me, go away, you're evil, this, that, and the other. Granted, also, if you look at this from a demonic place, those of us who are Christians are not called to provoke. We are called to love and to be patient and quiet. And this Black guy on his video is calling her a racist. Jesus loves you. Go spend some time with God. You are mocking God when you do that, because that is not how Jesus treats people. And that just freaking gets under my skin when I hear Christians using God to run from God. And that's what he talks about in this book. Like it is not okay to provoke anybody, especially when somebody is in a place of fear and they're screaming and saying, leave me alone, go away, stop talking to me, stop following me. And he's like, I'm just standing over here. Jesus loves you. You need God. Like, how sick is that? That is heartbreaking to me. So if that's the type of Christian you are, stop calling yourself a Christian, because you are not acting like one. And that is so wrong. So.
No, I think that's an excellent point. And then what it always reminds me of too.
Tangent.
No, it's an important tangent, because I think that's also why so many non-Christians get a bad taste in their mouth when
Yeah.
they hear the word Christian, is because that's the example they see.
Yeah.
And but what it really comes back to is, and I always think of it, is your number one commandment as a Christian is to love others. Jesus said, above all, love each other.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are not looking up the definition of love, if you don't know what that is, then you're going to get it wrong. Like that's,
And provoking somebody when they're in a state of fear is not Christ-like at all.
that's just going to make them blow up. You know,
Any,
that's,
yeah. And if you're a Christian and you're mocking people who are not Christians, I'm gonna go up on my soapbox again.
yeah,
You are not acting Christ-like.
right.
We are called to bring as many lost sheep home.
Yep.
And when you're, oh, I'm gonna cry.
That's okay. No, I'm
gonna
right
cry.
there with you.
When you are making fun of somebody who doesn't know the Lord, you are pushing them deeper into their sin.
Yeah.
And you are going to be the one who's standing at the foot of the cross when you die, and God's going to say, I never knew you.
Mm-hmm.
Because
mm-hmm.
that is what you're doing.
Yep.
But if you're the person who's looking at somebody who's so broken, who's freaking out, yelling, screaming, being whatever extreme,
Yeah.
like those are the people that need softness, that need gentleness, that need you to say, you know what, I don't know what you've been through, but it's been a lot, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is what we are called as Christians to do.
Yeah.
We are called to turn the other cheek
Mm-hmm.
when somebody's going off.
Mm-hmm.
We are called to, now you don't let people abuse you. So
Right.
there's a distinction there. You need to understand when you're in an abusive place and somebody's attacking you.
Yeah.
But when we get into that book, Nonviolent Communication, there are examples that people share that when they started to implement that NVC model, that compassionate communication with somebody, one girl was sharing a story about a time that a man broke into her store and attacked her, had a knife at her throat, and was going to rape her. And instead of getting defensive or shutting down, she said, I just started using this NVC model. And I'm like, you must feel really this right now. What are you needing? And she was like, just using that form of communication saved her life, basically,
Yeah.
because he eventually was just like,
You didn't see that coming.
the Holy Spirit will intervene if you let him.
Yeah.
But
No.
it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart when I see Christians, Christ followers, just
Mm-hmm.
attacking people who are not Christ followers, speaking back, getting down, jumping down their throats, you know, becoming and modeling and mimicking, and you're mirroring the thing that you're saying is evil. You're doing that evil thing yourself. And I think a lot of Christians need a reality check.
Oh, for sure.
And
I think I've worked with, so my current place of employment, I can almost pick out who has been through those encounters, because I don't make a secret of the fact that I'm a Christian, and if they see me coming, there have been instances where they've gone the other direction. Like, but you know, I know they're not running from me. I know who they're running from, and all that comes to my mind is, wow, somebody really hurt you.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, I just pray for them, and I'll say, you know, I hope for the opportunity to sit down and just be like, I'm not the scary person you think I am.
Yeah.
And that actually did happen. And things have been better, but I still can see, you know, there's even almost when I talk to my students about the fact that I said I'm open about the fact that I'm a Christian, and I know there's almost like a breath holding and that goes through the room, because there's two versions in their mind. Like, are you going to be the kind that beats me over the head? Yeah. That, like, is that going to be part of your teaching strategy, and how am I going to have to fight my way through this semester, or are you going to be understanding towards me? And
but those are two sides of the spectrum, judgmental and like speaking truth, and then grace.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to find the balance.
Right.
Like, it's, yes, I'm going to be graceful and merciful,
but I'm not a pushover.
But I'm also not a pushover. And I had said that to somebody where this one client of mine, and she's like, well, I'm trying to just be really graceful because I know he's this, and she's in an abusive relationship. Mm-hmm. And I said, listen, the Lord is graceful and merciful when you come before him and you confess and ask for forgiveness. That is when you receive grace and mercy.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
you're allowed to
you're doing your thing.
Step up and be assertive.
I can't forgive you.
Yeah.
I mean, I can forgive you and I do, but like we're not going to be in relationship until you confess what you did and take responsibility for your side of it too. And then then you get to receive the grace and the mercy that I give. But if you just walk around like, well, God's just going to grant me grace and mercy, and he's just like, you're living in a false dichotomy.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be helpful.
Right.
All right. So our God feels the journey of genuine transformation to emotionally healthy spirituality begins with a commitment to allow yourself to feel. That's hard.
Cool. I'm telling you, this chapter ripped me up a little
bit. It is. And this whole book is going to rip you up. Hopefully, because you need to tear everything down. That's the false self. This is the shattered part. So like when I started Shattered into One, the shattered part is we have to pull everything. You have to, like when you break a bone and then it heals in the wrong way, the doctors go in and re-break that bone. I don't know if they shatter it, but they re-break the bone in order to put it back the way it's supposed to be so it can heal properly. Yeah. That is what God does for you. He takes your broken shatteredness. And when I think about the reason why I chose shattered over broken is, if I like my water bottle, there's a crack it's broken. There's a crack in it, right? Something that's shattered has pieces of dust that are missing. We're never going to find those pieces of dust. If you look at a dish and you drop it on the ground, or a piece of glass and you shatter it, there are splinters and fractions of that you will never find to put back together. We cannot put our shattered lives back together by ourselves. But God knows where every single one of those broken dust particles belong. And he will put your life back together if you let him and you trust him to do so. Yep. So feeling our feelings, allow yourself to feel. I'm allowing myself to feel today. We are getting sad.
Me too.
It is an essential part of our humanity and unique personhood as men and women made in God's image. So you feel, even if you're unaware of it, read through that part of this book, Discovering God's Will Over Your Emotions. I really want to, what time is it? 11:30. So we're about an hour in. So I really want to talk about these three temptations, the great temptations toward the false self. I have spent years meditating on Jesus's temptations in the wilderness. They outline the three false identities. So this is written in Luke chapter 4, verses 1 through 13, the story of how Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, which I think just goes right along with braving the wilderness that Brene Brown talks about.
Sure does.
So they outline the three false identities, or make that Satan offers each one of us. And they show us the choices we too must make to remain faithful to our God-given unique life and identity. So before the passage begins, we are given a snapshot of Jesus's understanding of who he is. Heaven opens, the Spirit descends like a dove, and Jesus's Father speaks audibly, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." And that's in Matthew 3:17. In other words, you are lovable, you are good. It is so good that you exist. Jesus has yet to perform miracles or to die on the cross for the sins of humanity. Nonetheless, he receives an experiential affirmation that he is deeply loved by his heavenly Father for who he is. This love is the foundation of his self-understanding and the root source of how he feels about himself. Living and swimming in the river of God's deep love for us in Christ is at the very heart of true spirituality. Living and swimming in the river of God's deep love for us in Christ is at the very heart of true spirituality. Soaking in this love enables us to surrender to God's will, especially when it seems so contrary to what we can see, feel, or figure out ourselves. So if you feel, I don't feel this thing, I don't feel like that, I don't feel like I'm this, I feel like I'm lying to myself. Those are all lies. That's your false self. Let that stuff go. This experiential knowing of God's love and acceptance provides the only sure foundation for loving and accepting our true selves. Only the love of God in Christ is capable of bearing the weight of our true identity. I'm going to repeat that again. Only the love of God in Christ is capable of bearing the weight of our true identity. You cannot know your true identity without the Creator who created your true identity. It just is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
God has shaped and crafted us internally with a unique personality, thoughts, dreams, temperament, feelings, talents, gifts, and desires. That's the vitals, that vitals method we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
He has planted true seeds of self inside of us. They make up the authentic us. We are also deeply loved. We are a treasure. So, three powerful temptations, however, threaten that. Each in its own way screams God's love for you will never be enough. You are not lovable and you are not good enough. Number one, temptation one is I am what I do performance. And I think I see this the most with the men that I work with.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not doing, if I'm not providing, if I'm not working, that's my identity. And I lost my job and now I lost who I am. And so it's this performance.
Mm-hmm.
The devil said to Jesus, if you are the Son of God, tell these stones to become bread. If you are who you say you are, then do this.
Yep.
Anytime you hear somebody say that to you, think about Jesus and what he said to the devil. Jesus had apparently done nothing for 30 years. He had not yet begun his ministry. He seemed like a loser. Nobody believed in him. He was hungry. What contribution had he made to the world? Our culture asks the same question. What have you achieved? How have you demonstrated your usefulness? What do you do? Most of us consider ourselves worthwhile if we have scored sufficient successes in work, family, school, church, relationships.
Mm-hmm.
When we don't, we may move harder and faster, go inward into depression out of shame, or perhaps blame others for our predicaments. Thomas Merton, a Trappist monk and writer of the bestseller Seven Story Mountain, tells him of an occasion in his life. He said, a few years ago, a man who was compiling a book on success wrote and asked me to contribute a statement of how I got to be a success. I replied indignantly that I was not able to consider myself a success in any terms that had a meaning to me. I swore I had spent my life strenuously avoiding success. If it happened that I had once written a bestseller, this was a pure accident due to inattention and naivety, and I would take very good care never to do the same thing again. If I had a message to my contemporaries, I said, it was surely this: be anything you like, be madmen, drunks of every shape and form, but at all costs avoid one thing: success. I heard no more reply from him, and I am not aware that my reply was published. Merton understood how easily earthly success tempts us to find our worth and value outside of God's inexhaustible free love for us in Christ. So, when have you ever had to face this temptation where performance, you thought, I had to perform, I have to perform. If I'm not doing this, then I'm not successful.
Right, let me think about that. I know it's happened many times.
Let me share first because I
Okay.
sent this to you when I read that part and I texted you and I was like, oh my gosh. So when we were in Jamaica, we were talking about just the things that we've accomplished, right? Laura's getting her dissertation right now. She's in the process of writing it. I am 2 years away from, well, I'm a year and a half away from starting my dissertation. We were joking that we have collectively been in school for 25 out of the 40 years of our lives. So I've spent more time studying and learning and in school than I have out of school. But the parts outside of school were life experiences. So street smarts, I got book smarts and some street cred. But when we were in Jamaica, we would talk about the things, and you said to me, are you aware of how often you put yourself down? Like your success, like, you've worked really hard, you've gone to school, you're getting a doctorate degree, but you minimize that. And there's a part of me that's like, I don't want to say afraid, but I know how easy this right here, the devil will take. Well, look at everything that you've done. Why do you need God? Look at what you've accomplished. You've done all of this. And I know very successful people who have that mentality. And I'm just like, you're blinded by something because you may have done this, but it's because God gifted you and created you to do this. And you're just not giving him the credit. You're giving yourself the credit. So a part of me has always said, when I first started this psychology journey, working into the counseling field, I told God, I never want this to become about me and what I'm capable of. I always want to be able to give credit back to you. And I always will give the glory to God, because If it wasn't for him first saving my life in the moment when I was at my worst, none of this would be happening.
Right.
So I don't minimize the hard work that I've done, but my achievements aren't because of me.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So I am only capable of doing what I'm doing. Um, I truly understand and trust that this gift that I have, the way that my brain works, the way that I think, how I operate, my personality, my attributes, my experience, like all of that was God ordained.
Mm-hmm.
And I just give credit there.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't minimize who I am. I'm very hardworking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see myself as very intelligent because I made a lot of really terrible decisions. Um, but those are two different things. You know, like
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I can learn things. My Our emotions take over. I had no idea what my emotions were doing to me for so many years that I made all of those terrible decisions. But I'm a smart person. Like my brain works pretty well. I've become an expert in my field. I'm cons- I'm not an expert. I'm slowly, consistently working as, you know, becoming that expert, so to speak. Just like you are in the educational early childhood development. And what's even more cool about this is we can do so much on our own, but when God brings people together, like when He brought us together, we didn't know it was going to be anything like this.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden it's like, all right, I think I'm supposed to ask you to be a part of this. And I'm like, that's crazy because I've been praying about doing this for about 15 years, well, probably 25 years at this point,
Yeah.
for about 15 years. And that's right up my alley. And this is what I'm doing. And this is how you and your expertise and area combined with what I know how to do it, the what, the how, like it's just God will make it when it needs to be, when it's in His timing, and you've done all of the things that you need to do in order to make this epiphany, this innovation, this new thing.
Partnership.
I
Yeah.
want to say thing, idea.
Practical.
Yeah, when it comes to life.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't just learning the book knowledge, it was character development. I think the biggest thing that I learned over the past 15 years as I'm studying and becoming book smart is God was completely transforming my character. All the
Mm-hmm.
flaws, all the false uh, parts of myself, the shame, the disappointment, the inadequacy, the incompetency, the
Mm-hmm.
you're never going to be good enough for this, you don't qualify to do this, like all of those lies that I had been believing because of this performance temptation, so to speak. He had to get me to a place where I trusted that He was the source of everything that I was doing with my life, that it
Yeah.
didn't matter what I knew and what I don't know. He's going to inform me and bring that in the moments that it needs to be brought.
Yeah.
There's a scripture that talks about how the Holy Spirit is who brings to remembrance all that is forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
Be in the Spirit. If you don't know something, pause, pray, ask God, like, do I understand this? Do I know this? Help me remember. Like, what do I need to know in this moment? How do I need to apply it? And
Mm-hmm.
then wait and
Mm-hmm.
be still and pause and
Mm-hmm.
rest in that space. So the Lord can, I mean, that's what Jesus did. He paused. He
Mm-hmm.
never got defensive. He just was like, well,
And read. I find a lot of my answers through the Bible.
yes.
Um, and there are many times during the day where I think of a keyword and I'm like, that's what I'm going for. That's where I'm supposed to be focusing on today.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm glad to hear you say that my gift is that I am smart. Like that is something to own, because there are so many times just like where we are in conversations, you'll say something so profound and I'm like, it'll leave me like thinking for days. So like that's a really uncommon gift. So, and I think that's all God wants us to recognize is, it's not in our own power. It's not something that you did or I did or whatever. It's just, I gave you this gift and acknowledge, that it's there and use it, or don't. It's your choice, but um, just know that it's there if you want to tap into it. And then we say, thank you, Lord. Like,
And I think that's where the humility comes in. That's what prevents pride from taking
yeah.
over. Because you'll ask me, I've had clients, they're like, you said something last week in our session that like I've just been like mad about, but I've been chewing on it and I've been really just thinking about it. And it's really like that was true. That was happening. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was unaware of it. And do you
you.
remember what you said? And I'm like,
Mm-mm.
nope. No idea. I don't know. So I was like, and they'll tell me like, you said this to me. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that came from. I have one
I
client
do.
every time. Yeah, exactly. And somebody will say, I just had a friend that I was talking to, and humility came up. I don't know why humility came up in the conversation, but it did. And he was like, yeah, that's something I've really struggled with. Like, I'm really having a hard time with that. I don't even understand it. And then the next day he texts me back and he's like, oh my gosh, I was in class today and so weird. All we talked about was like humility. And I'm like, it's not weird.
Yeah.
This is God speaking to you
It's aligning.
first,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're hearing it a second time. I said, these are not coincidences. If you hear coincidence and that's the word that pops in your mind, that is the Lord speaking to you.
Yeah.
He is trying to, that's the whisper. Those are the whispers of God's voice to me. Like, ugh, it's not in your face. It's not screaming at you. It's not like the negative thoughts that are just racing through your mind. The devil is who's loud. The enemy is who's loud. God's like, shh, turn all that off. Listen for my voice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it to you this way. I'm going to say it to you from over here. I'm going to say it to you again over here.
Mm-hmm.
You will hear it if you're listening. Turn all that other junk off. Tell yourself, stop. I'm not going to believe that anymore. I'm done believing that. You have to break that automatic thought process. It's not just that simple. It starts there. And then the consistency of saying, all right, God, what do you want me to believe instead? What do I believe instead? What do I believe instead?
Mm-hmm.
And then you'll hear somebody say something to you and you'll be like, ugh. You'll hear a second person say the same thing to you and you'll be like, ugh. And by the time you hear it the third time, it's just going to be like, I'm going to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think I need to listen to this. Or this just can't be a coincidence anymore. I remember talking to a man. I think I told it this last time when we talked about a guy that was trying to recruit me for his pornography business back in my BC days. And I had just become a Christian. So baby Christian. And I spoke to him on the phone for like an hour and a half about what Jesus did for me and why I will never go back to that life, being naked, photo shoots, like any of that kind of stuff. And he really was trying hard to sell me.
Yeah.
And I just planted a seed and I let it go. And 3 months later, he reached out to me again and said, God has been trying to get a hold of me for a long time. And he said, in the conversation that you and I had, he's like, I think that transformed my way of thinking. And he said, and I want you to know that I've shut my pornography business down and I'm now starting a business that will shut other pornography businesses down. And I'm just
Amen.
like,
oh my gosh.
And that's just from a simple conversation of saying no, because I love Jesus.
Yeah.
And you don't understand what you're doing.
Right.
Because you're on the outside looking at it from a glamorous place, but what's going on the inside is you have broken women and men who have been abused and sexually molested and raped and kidnapped and taken, and they have just been groomed to become these people. And that's the only way that they don't get treated like shit. I mean, and so that becomes the lie and the life that they live.
Yeah.
And everybody who's watching it and everybody who's contributing to this, like all you're doing is contributing to the shame and the detriment and the hurt and the pain. Yeah. And the reason you're doing that is because you haven't dealt with your own shame and your own hurt and your own issues that are drawing you to that.
Yeah.
So having this relationship with God and finding that transformation and that healing, it's not something that you could put into words. Like I can share my story. I can talk about that experience and the transformation, but it's so personal. It's so personal that you have to go through it yourself. You have to be the one who reaches out and is like, God, if you're real, here I am.
Yep.
Let me take my clothes off. Here I am naked before you. Show me everything. I'm willing. And you have to be willing to say it. He already knows you. He already knows and sees everything. But when we are the ones who come before him and say, this is where my nakedness is, this is my shame, this is my anger, this is my brokenness. Yeah. That's when he can start putting your pieces together and helping you find the healing that you need. But it's a journey because he doesn't just fix you like that. The mentality, the flip that flip happens like that. But your behaviors and the habits that you've been living in and dealing with, those are all still there. The flesh is the flesh. And to deny that is to deny yourself.
Yeah.
But if you can embrace it and learn from it and say, God, how do we bring glory to you through this terrible, shameful experience? That's what I can't put to words.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Make me cry.
Girl, temptation number 2. I am what I have, my possessions.
Mm.
So performance was number 1. Possessions is number 2. Jesus was taken to see all of the magnificence and power of the earth. The devil basically said to him, look around you at what everyone else has. You don't have anything. How can you think you are somebody? How will you survive? You're a nobody. The devil played on profound issues of fear and the source of his insecurity. Our culture measures our success by what we own. Marketers now spend more than $15 billion each year seducing children and adolescents to believe that they have to have certain toys, clothes, electronic devices, etc. Their very identities depend on it. As adults, we measure ourselves through comparisons. Who has the most money, the most beautiful body, the most comfortable life? Often our sense of worth is tied to our possessions at work, the money and the perks. Who has the best education, from what school, the most talents and awards, the most degrees on their resume? Who has the most attentive, handsome boyfriend or husband, the best looking girl or wife? A powerful example of this is found in the movie Adamus. Antonio Salieri is the court musician whose soul is destroyed by envy, not by possessing enough, by not possessing enough. He longs to create music for God and to be famous. He is really good. The problem is that he is not as good as Mozart, who was a genius. Mozart possesses the ability to actually compose a symphony in his head, something few people in history have been able to do. Rather than recognize Mozart's genius and bring it to the world, Salieri is angry at God for being so unfair. Tragically, he believes Mozart is loved by God while he is not. I understand Salieri. To define myself as a son immensely loved by God, to find my personal worth in my Abba Father, who says of me, you are my son Pete, whom I love. With you I am well pleased. Apart from anything I do is revolutionary. My culture, family of origin, and flesh tell me that only possessions and talents and applause from other people are sufficient for security. Jesus models surrender of my will to the love of the Father as the true anchor for who I am. The surrender of my will. I remember surrendering my will to God. I literally said that out loud before I knew anything about anything. I was like, God, I suck at making decisions with my free will, so I surrender it. Like, your will is my will at this point. So just guide me, lead me, show me where to go, what to do. I'll do it. I'll be obedient. It was hard because there were a lot of things he called me to do that I was like,
I don't want to do
that.
that.
I don't want
Yeah.
to go there. I don't want to do that. But all of those places he led me to were meant to heal parts of me I didn't know were broken.
Yeah.
I didn't know were part of the shattered parts of my life. So
That's what I think with we've had a lot of really big things happening with merging, what we're doing
oh
together.
yeah, the shattered into one in the lot 25.
Yeah, and so all these things are moving in a big direction, and we know something big is going to come out of it, and that's something we've been talking about a lot. But I also think, like, and I think I told you this over the phone the other day, like it's laying out, for me at least, what the next step is. If you want to walk into that, there's somebody you need to forgive. And
Ooh.
yeah, and I've had these conversations with God, like literally, I just don't want to, like, and I'm just sitting at my kitchen table just crying because I'm like, I just don't want to do it. But he's like, you don't have to then, but like, just know if this is what you want, for
this can't come there with you.
right,
You have to leave that behind.
right,
And that's the hardest thing, is giving up the things that we think protect us
mm-hmm.
or are fun. Like it's like a fun that you're aware of, but a fun that you don't know yet is on the other side. And you're like, well, this is way, way cool. I love doing this. And he's like, okay.
Right. But you're
But
not
if you
going
want
to
to
get to
have this
see.
kind of fun over here, you can't bring that with you. It doesn't operate. It doesn't work that way. You have to let that go. You have to be willing to sacrifice that.
Well, and I think that has been the biggest thing too, because I'm also even just thinking about my graduation cap. So to me, it's very almost it's surreal that I'm graduating next year. I mean, as long as everything goes to plan,
Yeah.
see. But the phrase that I'm wanting to put on my cap is like, thank you, Belize. I want some sort of a tribute to the children. And I remember way back when I first started pursuing this degree, somebody at work said to me, I don't know how you do it. Like, I could never put myself through that. And I was just like, interesting comment. And I have thought about it a lot. And I'm like, I don't do it for me. Like, I think, and even somebody in our class last week was saying, I understand why people drop out when they get to this point. Like, I'm so tired. I'm so this, I'm so that. And I just was sitting there thinking, and God was speaking to me. He was saying, it's because you don't have a reason why you're doing it. And if you're doing it for selfish ambition, it's gonna fall.
It's
like,
exhausting.
yeah, and
Yeah.
you're gonna burn out and you're gonna quit. But he's putting that all into perspective for me of you're doing this for those Belize students, like hands down. Like this, you're doing it for me, but like this is, everything that you are fighting for is so that they can have a better life. And I'm like, and that includes forgiving this person. And I'm like, okay, you just keep making it more clear. And like, I know, and I just need to change my frame of thinking, like be thankful that he gave you 3 months to prepare yourself, to before I actually see this person. But
I will say forgiveness has been the biggest contribution to my journey.
Yeah.
Like through transformation, like forgiveness is at the root.
Yeah.
It's in the roots.
It really is. And it's the thing that, because that's what holds, unforgiveness is what holds you back in life.
The anger. And that, I mean, and you have to be open to that and recognizing like, I'm upset about this. I'm angry about this.
Yeah.
And dealing with it.
But I think, yeah, that's one of those things too. So, but remembering how Jesus approached all those situations. And there was even a verse last night when we were at church that was like, Jesus never took offense to anything. He never harbored resentment or anything like that. He just let it go. And so if you want to be more like me, that's what you have to do. Like you make amends, make it right, and keep walking.
But he didn't deny his feelings.
No.
He was angry when he was angry, but he didn't hold on to it. He let it out. He made it known.
Yep.
And then he said, kind of like the turning of the tables, like this is supposed to be a place where anybody and everybody can come, and you've made it a den of thieves.
Den of thieves, yeah.
And that's not what this is for. So yeah, I'm calling that out, and I'm going to make that known. And it's not okay that you're doing what you're doing. But if you change your ways, if you do it this way, you'll receive a blessing that you don't know that you're going to reap. Like you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I think he used that situation that I just walked through with my own dad, like saying I forgive you after so many years of, and then me not being able to see what was on the other side of that is just freedom. Like I don't feel mad when I'm around him anymore, and now I'm starting to see the other side of like how he stepped in when my biological dad left. Yeah. So I'm able to see other things and feel other things that I haven't ever or for a long time.
Because anger blocks you from seeing the truth. Yeah. Like that bitterness and resentment, all of those things prevent you from actually seeing the truth.
Right.
And it's really hard to put yourself in somebody else's shoes when all you can see is yourself and your own victimization and your own hurts and your own pain.
Yep.
But if I can release that, name it, let it go, ask God to help me do that, forgive, now all of a sudden it's like, oh my gosh, if that happened to me when I was your age, or if, now I can start to see like, oh, you didn't do this on purpose. Like this is your hurt, your pain. And I've done hurtful and painful things to people in my life. And
same.
I have to let this go if I ever want them to be able to let go. It's
yeah. And
we're all interconnected in that way.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point that you said that too, because God's reminding me, you've hurt people too. Like, and how do you want them to feel? Like how, when you ask for forgiveness, like, that's, how do you feel after the fact when it's happened and you can't take it back? Like, how are you going to make that right? So, give other people that same chance.
Yeah. Practice what you preach.
Yep.
Temptation number 3. I am what others think. Popularity. This, I think, is probably one of the biggest drivers one of the biggest problems I see.
Mm-hmm.
What if they think this? What if this? What if? So some of us are addicted to what others think. Satan invited Jesus to throw himself down from the highest spot of the temple that people might believe in him. At this point, people did not think anything of Jesus. He was, in effect, invisible. How would he think he had worth and value? Most of us place a higher premium on what other people think than we realize. What will I say or not say in a conversation? What school did my child attend? Who will I date? Do I tell that person he or she hurt me? What kind of career will I pursue? Our self image soars with a compliment and is devastated by criticism. This is
Mm-hmm.
BPD.
Mm.
Idealizing, devaluing, idealizing, devaluing. You go from one extreme to the next. Like this person, I love this person. They're great. They're awesome. But they wouldn't let me borrow their car when I asked it. So they're screw them. They're evil and they hate me. And I can't believe that.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be aware of
the roller coaster.
that roller coaster because that's
Mm-hmm.
the enemy in your head.
Yep.
So true freedom comes when we no longer need to be somebody special in other people's eyes because we know we are lovable and good enough.
Mm-hmm.
M. Scott Peck illustrates the point through a story of meeting a classmate at his high school at the age of 15. The following are his reflections after a conversation with his friend. I suddenly realized that for the entire 10-minute period from when I had first seen my acquaintance until that very moment, I had been totally self-preoccupied. For the 2 or 3 minutes before we met, all I was thinking about was the clever things I might say that would impress him. During our 5 minutes together, I was listening to what he had to say only so that I might turn it into a clever rejoinder. I watched him only so that I might see what effect my remarks were going to have on him. And for the 2 or 3 minutes after we separated, my sole thought content was those things I could have said that might have impressed him even more.
Mm-hmm.
I had not cared a whit for my classmate. This is narcissism. What is most startling in reading a detailed explanation of what goes on beneath the surface at the age of 15 is that the same dynamics continue into the 20s, 30s, 50s, 70s, and 90s. We remain trapped in living a pretend life out of an unhealthy concern for what other people might think. Guilty. I mean, to me, it's just like, that is like the root of ADHD. You want to get rid of your ADHD. If you've had ADHD your whole life and you want to get rid of it, stop trying to think about what you can say to impress people. Listen, shut your mind off, hear what they say, reflect back to them what they're saying. So what I'm hearing you say is this. It sounds like this. You must be feeling this. Is there truth to that? Am I on the right page? Am I following? Take yourself out of it. I think that was the one thing that really helped me get rid of the intrusive, impulsive, like, oh, if I don't say this now, I'm going to forget it and I have to say it now.
Yeah.
And then I started to say, okay, if that's true, this is the Lord guiding me always, because you don't get these profound inside information
That's
from
true.
nowhere.
Right.
So let's lower that hand. So, I used to say to myself in those moments when I was training my mind to learn how to listen better, and I would say, if it's important, it will come back. If it's not, it's just your opinion.
That's good.
If it's profound, the Lord will bring it back. If you can't remember it, it's not that important. You just want to be heard.
Yeah.
So turn your mouth, shut your mouth. I tell people with ADHD, if you want to learn how to control this part of conversations, go sit in a group and don't speak unless you're asked to speak.
Biggest challenge.
Huge challenge. Huge challenge. But I remember after I went to a group and the Lord gave me this premonition. This was back in 2015. And I started showing up to that group and I stopped sharing. I stopped talking because like awkward silence, right? Everybody wants to fill the awkward silence. That was me. That, and I'm like in my mind going, well, we only have an hour to talk about this. So if nobody's going to speak up, I'll speak up and I'll at least get it started. So then other people will share afterwards. Yeah. But I had something in my character that needed to be corrected. So God was like, you're going to go to that group and you're going to stop sharing. And I was like, okay. So I started going to this group. I didn't share. I listened. I allowed other people. I learned what people were doing. And after a few weeks, the group leader, the facilitator, came up to me and he was like, your demeanor has changed. And I was like, how so? He's like, you're more quiet. I know what happened. I had met a friend who we went to lunch one day, and he said, I think the Lord wants me to tell you that he wants you to practice being more like Mary and less like Martha. Because I was a
Okay.
performance person, do, work, work, work. Acts of service is my love language.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what the heck does that mean? More like Mary and less like Martha. Like, what are you saying? And you get defensive. But I took it to heart, and I got in my journal, and I prayed about it, and I read that story of Mary and Martha when Jesus came. And I learned in that moment, God, was teaching me that when you speak and when you do, you're doing that just in your own. That's you. That's all
Mm-hmm.
about you. When you
Mm-hmm.
sit and you listen, you grow.
Mm-hmm.
You're not growing if you're not listening.
I mean, that's such a profound thought. I'm just see, that's an example right there when you're like, smart as a gift.
Does that
And
does
that's
that
what
make
leaves me
sense?
thinking. Yeah, it
Every time I'm
does.
like, does that make sense?
Because my silence on the other side of that is me just pondering that. Like,
Yeah.
and I might ponder that for 3 days now. Like,
Yeah.
and it's just that's
That'll be a book reread too. I think it's called How to Be More Like Mary in a Martha World or something like that. It's that
yeah.
first book over there. But who my pastor's wife, she brought that book. She was just talking about it from her early childhood or younger years when she was growing into being a pastor's wife and things like that. And she was like, go, 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 performance, performance, do. And God was like, no, you need to sit and listen. Just, you need to chill. And stillness, like to lay down on the floor, to be able to sit for 2 minutes and just breathe. That Yahweh,
Mm-hmm.
that's all I do. I breathe in God, I exhale God, inhale, exhale. To be able to do that at this point in my life where 15 years ago literally made my skin crawl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like agitated to just sit in stillness.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had to sit there. And I pushed myself and pushed myself and pushed myself and practice and practice and practice. And now I'm like, if I need a 2-minute break, I'm going to go take 5.
Right.
If I need a 10-minute break, I'm going to go take 30.
Yeah.
And I don't care what people think or, if nothing is going to change unless you're in surgery and you're saving somebody's life, nothing is going to change in 2 minutes.
Right.
Nothing. And if it does, it wasn't meant to be.
Yep.
Let it go.
That's where, so yesterday I'm building up. I'm not building up. I'm trying to get out the door. And so I have both Mary and Martha in me right now. I'm aware acutely of the other things that my husband does that I need to help out a little bit more. And of course, it's a balance. I have other things that he doesn't do that I do. But when he wasn't there and I was like, stress, get out the house.
I think it's an appreciation you develop for him where it's like,
for sure.
I
Yeah.
need to express appreciation a little bit.
And I told him that. I said, I'm exhausted. like I don't know how you do all this. And I'm just really grateful that he's like, it's fine. Like I just get up and do it. I'm like, that's what I need to be more like, is just get up and do it. So that's telling me to be a little bit more Martha. But I think it's also because
you need to be a little bit more like Martha.
Yeah, a little bit more like Martha. Get up, Laura, go do some things. But also yesterday, so then I over Martha'd, right? And
that's, I think, normal to go from one extreme to the next.
Yeah, that's that pendulum.
Not that much.
Well, and I was pressuring myself, honestly, I showed you those eggs this morning. I was pressuring myself to get these peeled because you have to leave for Jess's house in an hour. And then I was like, why don't you just text her and ask if you can make it there? And you're like, yep. I was like, we can cook all day. I'm like, okay, that sounds a lot more fun. like that was, what I needed to hear. But God was just like, why are you stressing so much over one little recipe?
Over peeled eggs.
Literally, I got through half of it.
Give you a heart attack.
Yeah.
Over some hard-boiled eggs, girl.
Yeah.
You need to just chill.
And you're like, didn't you put them in the ice bath? Yes, I did. But I'm like, I don't know enough about eggs apparently. But I was just like, you know what? This is supposed to be an enjoyable thing. I'm going to just completely restructure this. When I did that, I felt so much better. Going to lunch with my family, and that was our Easter togetherness. And I was just like, you know what? This is why I bought this cooler that plugs into my car, for moments like these. And it was nice because I just thought, we've got all weekend to get it done. And I might need supervision. So I mean, in truth.
That's
because
funny.
I mean, it's true.
Am I doing it the right way? And I'm
I
like,
mean,
just what?
you're just gonna just watch me peel an egg today, and you're gonna be like, hold up.
Let me show you an easier way to do that.
Yeah, please do, because
We'll do the glass jar and water trick.
that sounds great. But yeah, it was so nice because then I was able to just like take a shower, go see your family. My mom bought us all Easter lunch, which was unexpected but nice. And then my niece is eating lunch and she just reaches out her hand and I was like, yes. And she's like, I just want to hold your hand. I said, okay.
Aw.
So like, if I had been all stressed out about all the things I had not gotten done, I would have missed that.
Yeah.
So
I'll
yeah.
tell you, that's what you just said is so true. Is when we get so caught up in the performance or the popularity or the possessions, we step outside of being present
Yeah.
and mindful of what's going on, and we miss the small little things that God's like,
I gave this
I'm
to you.
showing.
Yeah,
Here
exactly.
I am. Like this is the connection that you need. A similar thing happened with me last weekend. My sister comes over every Saturday with her 5 children. And I have a really close relationship with my nieces and nephews. And so they all left, and my nephew Ram. So I was here. So like Ram was like the babe. Like I have this bond with him because he was from 0 to 18 months. Like I was with him a lot with my sister and him.
Mhm.
So we just have a different bond. Rebecca was the same way. Not so much Elizabeth because I think she was two before I moved back home. So I didn't really get to spend a lot of time with her the first 18 months of her life. But Rebecca and Ram, I'm very close to because of that.
Yeah.
So it's not that I love them more or anything. It's in the first 18 months of any child's life is that
Yeah.
connection, that trust versus mistrust. Like that's where the bond is
Mhm.
formed. And I just was present for that. So
So they
it's
see you as a caregiver.
yeah, it's just
Mhm.
naturally there. But I'm doing the dishes and they're like,
Mhm.
Ram, are you coming? And he's like, I'm just going to wait until Aunt Jessica's going and I'm going to go with her. And I was like, this is why freaking am going to stay in Toledo. But it's in those little moments. Like those are the
Yeah.
precious moments. Like that almost brought tears to my eyes where I'm just like, they do love me.
Yeah.
I am
They
loved.
do.
And those are the moments where God reminds you, like, you are loved. Like
Mhm.
people do
Mhm.
care about you.
Mhm. Absolutely.
But those are also the moments as adults we have to remember to do those childlike things where it's
Yeah.
like, no, I'll wait for you because
You're
I love
worth
you. I
it.
care about you.
Yeah.
I think that's why gift giving is such a big deal for me. Like I see things and I'm like, ooh, that person's gonna like that. And I'll just buy it and be like, here, I thought of you. And it's not a big deal to me. It's nothing significant. Like it's not like this, I love you and want it. It's I love you.
Mhm.
And I thought about you and here you go. Like, do you
Yeah.
want this? I'm not gonna use it anymore. Would you take that?
Mhm.
They're like, oh my gosh, I love it. And I'm like, "God, it's garbage to me. You know what I mean? But it's a gift to them. And so
Right.
it's that those are the little things that you do to remind people how much they
They mean
mean
to
and they
you.
matter to
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Agreed. Agreed.
so reading into the deeply entrenched false self, going into Jesus's true self, I think this is important to address, and then how to develop your authentic self. We'll touch on those and then we'll let y'all go. Um, the reason I think this is so important is because it specifically talks about, excuse me, the spectrum of being selfless to selfish.
Mm.
And I think a lot of Christians see non-Christians as selfish, and then Christians are supposed to be selfless. And I'm going to lower my hand again. I don't know why this does this. So, Jesus' true self. It seemed that almost everyone had expectations or a false self to impose on Jesus's life. In living faithfully to his true self, he disappointed a lot of people. Jesus was secure in his Father's love, in himself, and thus was able to withstand enormous pressure. He left his family of origin and their expectations of a carpenter's son and became an inner directed, separate adult. As a result, he disappointed his family. At one point, his mother and siblings wondered if he was out of his mind. Mark 3:21. He disappointed the people he grew up with in Nazareth. When Jesus declared who he really was as the Messiah, they tried to push him off a cliff. Luke 4:28-29. He remained self-assured in his beliefs, regardless of the outrage of the crowds in his hometown. He disappointed his closest friends, the 12 disciples. They projected onto Jesus their own picture of the kind of Messiah Jesus was to be. This did not include a shameful end to his life. They quit on him. Judas, one of his closest friends, stabbed him in the back for being true to himself. But even though they misunderstood him, Jesus never held it against them. Jesus listened without reacting, something I'm working on.
Me too.
He communicated without antagonizing. We talked about that earlier. Yet he deeply disappointed the crowds. They wanted an earthly Messiah who would feed them, fix all their problems, overthrow the Roman oppressors, work miracles, and give inspiring sermons. I think that's how a lot of us view God even today.
Yep.
Somehow Christ was able to serve and love them again without holding it against them. He disappointed the religious leaders. They did not anticipate the disruption his presence brought to their day-to-day lives or to their theology. They finally attributed his power to demons. Nonetheless, Jesus was able to maintain a non-anxious presence in the midst of great stress. Jesus was not selfless. He did not live as if only other people counted. He knew his value and worth. He had friends. He asked people to help him. At the same time, Jesus was not selfish. He did not live as if nobody else counted. He gave his life out of love for others. From a place of loving union with his Father, Jesus had a mature, healthy, true self. So that's like that selfless, selfish swinging of this pendulum. And if you're a completely selfless people pleaser, all of that, anything that has to do with you is going to feel selfish. You have to do this in order to find balance between these two. If you're a completely selfish person, anytime you do something for somebody else, you're going to feel like they're walking all over you. You're taking advantage of me. You have to get through that to find balance between these two sides of the spectrum. So be aware of where you're falling on the spectrum. Powerful generational forces and spiritual warfare work against us, yet living faithfully to our true self in Christ represents one of the great tasks of discipleship. So differentiation involves the ability to hold on to who you are and who you are not. The degree to which you are able to affirm your distinct values and goals apart from the pressure around you. That's the separateness. While remaining close to people important to you, togetherness. That's what helps determine your level of differentiation. So this is how to step outside of dichotomous thinking. If you're in black and white, all or nothing, this or that, us versus you, me versus you, us versus them, that kind of thing. Becoming a person of differentiation. I don't know if I'm even pronouncing that.
Differentiation.
Too many syllables in one word for me.
It's all right. The only reason I know that so well is because it's an early childhood term.
Okay.
I'll go into that.
Good. People with a high level of differentiation have their own beliefs, convictions, directions, goals, and values apart from the pressures around them. They can choose before God how they want to be without being controlled by the approval or disapproval of others. Intensity of feelings, high stress, or the anxiety of others around them does not overwhelm their capacity to think rationally. I may not agree with you or you with me, yet I remain in relationship with you. I don't have to detach from you, reject you, avoid you, or criticize you to validate myself. I can be myself apart from you. So go ahead, share what you know about that.
So this is a key component to writing lesson plans in a classroom. And it's part of the child-centered practice, but when teachers are planning for 30 different individual people in their classroom, traditional methods would just say everybody gets the same thing presented in one way, right? But we have started realizing
school systems that don't obviously work because you've got kids that learn differently and hear things differently. And
and now we're under a different level of accountability because there's a lot of standardized testing and there's a lot of performance-based expectations. And suddenly they were like, well, what are we going to do about that? Because we have been teaching for so long under this one way. And we have so many kids falling through the cracks. And that, reading this really aligned with that because it's a reminder that every person needs to be differentiated, not just in the classroom, but with these, especially with these children, it's like, how do we learn best? What influences them? What prohibits them or prevents them from being able to learn? And it's a very similar situation. So it's stepping outside of yourself to look at that other person and say, what are your needs? How do you learn best? What lights you on fire? And learning that about yourself too. So know who you are through God, and then know who God made that person to be and respect it.
Yeah.
And I think that's just been, it's really interesting to me just because I have that educational background with this, and this is something I was required to do for every single lesson plan. So how are you going to differentiate for this student, for this student? And they gave us all these different scenarios, and that's, it really is a life applicable thing.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to close on developing your authentic self, which, if you've been following along the past 3 months, we've read 3 books about this basically. But here are his insights um, as to how you can develop your authenticity. Number 1, pay attention to your interior in silence and solitude. How do you do that? You have to put yourself in silence and solitude. So, if the most important thing you can do is to pay attention to your interior self in the silence and solitude, then you need to start practicing silence and solitude, or you will never be able to do this. So, we want to be the men and women God has called us to be, our true selves in Christ. Yet enormous distractions keep us from listening to our feelings, our desires, our dreams, our likes and dislikes. Many people around us would like to fix, save, advise, and set us straight into becoming the people they would like. We need to be alone so we can listen. My journey into emotionally healthy spirituality began very simply. Each day, as part of my devotions to God, I would allow myself to feel emotion before God. Then I would journal. Over time, I began to discern patterns in God's movements in new ways in my life. Initially, I wondered if I was a heretic to make this part of my prayer life. Finally, I determined that what was going on inside of me was true, whether I was aware of it or not. So I may as well be aware of it. So this is the beginning part of self-awareness, understanding what's going on inside of you. If you're the person that's like, oh, that person just pisses me off, you are unaware of what's going on inside of you, and you're projecting and you're blaming. Turn it inward. Become curious about it. Why does that bother me so much? When they say that, why do I get so irritated by it? It's probably a value that's being stepped on, or you might be in a position where you feel like somebody's trying to assert authority and control over you. Deal with that. Now, if that's true and that is what's going on, then you need to learn how to communicate assertively with that. Hey, I didn't really care how you said that. Help me understand this. Your perception might be wrong. It could be also correct. But if you're not asking questions, you're not first figuring out what's going on inside of you, you're going to project that insecurity and you're going to make that other person responsible for really what's going on inside of you. So pay attention to your interior in silence. He mentions journaling. I mentioned journaling. I'm so, I think, not addicted. I'm so adamant about this because it is so profound when you learn how to do it correctly. Even Dr. Caroline Leaf, who's a neuroscientist, she talks about the correct way to journal properly for self-reflection. And it's literally how you connect your subconscious mind to your conscious mind. You bring the subconscious. And we operate so much in the subconscious without recognizing or realizing it, which is why we go around hurting people without realizing we're hurting people and we're unaware. So journaling is what brings that awareness to your attention. So journal. I can't even explain to you how much you're going to love yourself in the future for doing this. Just start today. Doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter how good you are at it. Just start practicing, giving yourself 5 minutes a day to just write down whatever's in your head. Practice this.
This is mine. I take it with me.
I think I have like 80 of them.
I mean, I do too, but like this is my current in rotation. But I also find that, oh, there you go. And I feel like my day does not feel complete if I don't get at least a little bit of time. And often I'm there for a while because I have a lot of thoughts. But I get to know myself better by writing things down. And then I'll write down prayers, I'll write down scriptures, I'll do whatever it is that I need to do. And just because of when we're reading these books, like in order for it to be concrete and like stay with me, I have to have key points written down.
And it's the second way that you learn. We hear, that's the first way we learn. We write it down. That's another way of memorizing and learning something. We say it out loud. That's a third way that you're learning. So all of these different things that you do through your 5 senses are going to help your brain retain information and memorize things.
And the last way of doing it is going out and doing it. The
action.
Application is going to be your strongest
one.
Number
2, find trusted companions.
Hello.
We are to be alone together, a community of solitudes. Radical change at the core of our being is at the core. There are two critical forces that hinder such a profound shift. First, the pressure of others to keep us living lives that are not our own is enormous. And second, our own stubborn self, our own stubborn selves, our own stubborn self will is much deeper and more insidious than we think. I can't do that. That's my brain doesn't work that way. I don't.
Does it? Can you? Yeah.
Well, it's operating the way that your mind is telling it to because your brain is hardwired to your thinking and you are the programmer.
You should be
Or
thinking
others are
hard.
programming you and you don't realize it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's much more deeper and insidious than we think. The possibility of self-deception is so great that without mature companions, we can easily fall into the trap of living in illusions, which is why we have therapists, because we help you see what you don't see.
Thank you,
and
God, for that.
realize what you're not aware of.
Yeah.
So find trusted companions. If you've got friends that take information you share and hurt you with it, gossip about it, those aren't the people to tell those things to anymore.
Right.
Find somebody that you can trust. This goes back to the braving, the vault. You need people who will be the vault for you.
Yep.
Number 3, move out of your comfort zone. This is my favorite. I literally will give a list of things that are embarrassing things to do to clients to be like, you need to go embarrass yourself. You need to go practice doing embarrassing things. That is the only way you step outside your comfort zone.
Yep.
Ask the hard questions, say the hard thing, be silly. So to begin to do things differently, especially in the beginning, will feel very awkward. Absolutely. So changing the way we have lived for 20 or 40 or 60 years requires nothing short of a revolution. So it's going to be uncomfortable. And I say this all the time, you need to become comfortably uncomfortable. Do the things that you don't want to do to push yourself past your limits.
Yeah. Yeah.
And number 4, pray for courage. Pray for courage.
Always.
Vulnerability is what creates courage, right? Brene Brown talks about this all the time. You cannot be courageous without being vulnerable. You need to know where you're being vulnerable in effective ways and how to be more vulnerable in safe and productive and effective ways. Pray for courage. Change is always accompanied by a reaction from those close to us. There's a powerful opposition when one member of that system matures and increases his or her level of differentiation. He argues that even a little growth can cause a reaction in those closest to him or her. In the same way, I have seen repeatedly that when anyone makes a change in themselves, becoming their more true self in Christ, a few people around them will often become upset about that, and they will try to keep you stuck. So you have to move past that. So
I've already started to notice that.
yeah. Yeah.
So when I read through the stages, I was like, oh, interesting. Now I know which stage I'm in.
Yeah. But keep making those changes. Over time, they will become comfortable with the changes that you're making. It's just going to be difficult in the beginning.
Yeah.
So anything you want to close on?
Can I read the stages?
Absolutely. And then you can pray if you want.
Absolutely. I'll do that. Stage 1, you are wrong for changing, and here are the reasons why. Stage 2, change back, and we will accept you again. Stage 3, if you don't change back, these are the consequences, and which then are listed.
Yeah.
So just know
What
that
stage are you in your change cycle?
Right. And that is, I think it's important because I forget that that's not just the people I know responding. It's not like a relationship problem, that this is a common response to people who are uncomfortable with change.
Yeah. And if that's you, that's self-awareness. Like, why do I get so uncomfortable with change?
Yeah.
You might be on the spectrum.
That's also valid.
I mean, I am. It is
am.
what it is.
Yeah.
Most of us are, I think. We just are unaware of it, but
Well,
you can work through that discomfort. Like,
yeah.
you don't have to be stuck in just, this is how I am. Like, expand.
One of my things too is if I go back to, is it biblical?
Yeah.
Is what this person is doing or saying to me, or how I'm changing and that person's reacting, is it my fault, or is it something that it's out of obedience, you're going to get pushback? And that has been really helpful for me to know, do I need to continue, or is this person right, or is this just like that spiritual force that is trying to come against it? And I've heard it said somewhere, when you encounter adversity, that's when you know you're doing something right. And definitely, I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable, but you got to walk through the fire to be fireproof. So, all right. Did you want me to do the?
You can
The
read that
prayer?
prayer. You can pray your own prayer. We're just going to end in prayer.
Okay.
So we want you guys to just really receive and feel the Spirit.
Lord, help me to be still before you. Lead me to a greater vision of who you are. And in so doing, may I see myself, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Grant me the courage to follow you, to be faithful, to become the unique person that you have created me to be. I ask you for the Holy Spirit's power to not copy another person's life or journey. God, submerge me in the darkness of your love, that the consciousness of my false, everyday self falls away from me like a soiled garment. May my deep self fall into your presence, knowing you alone, carried away into eternity like a dead leaf in the November wind. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you for listening. Hope this was helpful. We will see you guys next week, next Saturday.
Chapter 3.
Chapter 3. We just read chapter 2.
Yeah, I'm staring at it.
We're going to go back to reading numbers and learning which ones in sequential order. So we're going to be reading chapter 3. This is going to be a chapter that kind of rocks you. Going back to go forward. This is when you'll create your family genogram. Figuring out how much you're like the people you don't like in your family. I think that's the hardest part. How similar are you to the people that you think you're very different from? So
and be open to
prepare yourself, be open for it. These are the changes. This is transformation. It's hearing the hard truth in order to step into the true self. So we love you. We are praying for you. We hope this was helpful. Stay tuned. We will talk to you next Saturday.